overall, right now, Pakistan and India are pretty much head to head, and they are ready to go into another war. God forbid. I don't want to see
So
that.
not only should we be praying for the families of the people who have lost loved ones in this terrorist attack, we should also be praying that India and Pakistan will avoid war and cooler heads will prevail over this issue. If somebody comes to you and says, we're going to invoke a curse together to see which is true, Christianity or Islam, would you participate in that activity?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
Islam will continue to be triumphant until there have been 12 Khulafa, all of them from Al-Quraysh.
The God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. Nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever.
This is my brother, my executor, and my successor among you, so listen to him and obey.
My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting.
Whoso obeys me obeys God. Whoever disobeys me disobeys God. Whoever disobeys my commander disobeys me.
The Lord said to me, You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession.
Two systems of government, two visions for life on earth. Whichever is true changes everything. This is Christ and Khulafa.
Welcome to Christ and Caliphate. On this podcast, we talk about current events in the Muslim world from a Christian perspective, and we also talk about timeless principles as they relate to Christianity and Islam and other worldviews. Today, we are going to be covering the recent crisis in Kashmir, and we're all going to be talking about curses after that. So, just to start off with a spicy take here, there was a terrorist attack in Kashmir that killed 27 people, I believe.
29.
29 people.
Why not?
Most of those were Hindus, and the terrorist was very specifically checking their ID to make sure they were Hindus before they killed them. But there was a Muslim man who got killed trying to stop the attack. Now, also I've heard. Now, someone on X says the sole entity responsible for this attack is the government of India. How do you react to that?
Okay, before reacting to anything, there are two things I would say firsthand that I have a bias. I am from Pakistan. And with my bias, I would answer a few questions. So to have the neutrality, I will try to stay as neutral as I can. But of course, I have my emotions attached to it. First of all, I think there is a lot of information coming in, and it's really, really hard to verify and to say that this information is correct and this is not. Particularly a Muslim guy jumping in and saving. We do not have a factual reporting or factual news to confirm that this really happened. On the other side, this event that they were explicitly checking IDs before killing is also I won't say false news, but it is alleged news, I would say.
Right. We don't have a good source on that yet.
So I think there is a lot of propaganda going on. First of all, let's condemn the attack, because innocent civilians, wherever they're killed in Kashmir, they're killed in Israel, Palestine, they're killed in Sudan or Saudi Arabia or Pakistan. That is condemnable action, right? And but whoever did that didn't do a good thing. I don't support, or neither of us support that kind of action. It just triggered two nuclear powers on the verge of war. In the aftermath of this attack, India took very strong actions, and they nullified the Indus River Treaty agreement with Pakistan. It's Indus River Treaty Agreement, which allows the control of rivers. We'll go in that later on in this show, but overall, right now, Pakistan and India are pretty much head to head, and they are ready to go into another war. God forbid. I don't want to see that.
Now, let's be clear here for a second. This attack was not perpetrated by the government of Pakistan, right?
No.
Is there any, like, even alleged links to, like, ISI or something?
Okay, so the thing is, we gotta go deep into that, right? Okay. So India's response always been whenever there is an attack on Indian soil, it automatically defaults to Pakistan, whether Pakistan direct involvement is there or not. Why is that? That in the past, Pakistani military groups, right? Not military, militant groups, had their bases in Pakistan, and they're used to operate in Kashmir. So there is a legacy, not to say that there is not, right? But this recent attack, India's government is claiming that all three attackers were Pakistani national, but that again is allegedly a claim that has any ground, that Pakistan have not confirmed that they were their citizens. It's highly likely that they are Kashmiri citizens, because what's going on in Kashmir is also a topic that we need to cover some other day, that the conditions trigger certain type of responses, and we have to see this. This is the first type of attack on civilians. Generally, militants in Kashmir used to attack military installments and military convoys and stuff, but this is of one type that the civilians are attacked. But again, now I'm going to connect these two. Pakistan is using its proxies in Kashmir, because it is a place where Pakistan have very strong hold intelligence wise, right? India, a few months ago, they did an attack in Quetta with Balochistan Liberation Army, in BLA, that is pretty active in the province of Balochistan, where they hijacked is not the word, where they hijacked a train, and then there was a rescue mission and some people killed. And so I think it's tit for tat. Both agencies are playing dirty here. I won't side with one and the other and say, no, India is all good and Pakistan is always wrong, or neither. I would say, Pakistan is all good and India is all wrong. It's all about the power game. So if you hit me, I hit you, then it goes back and forth, right? So the timing of it was very important. Modi was on a visit to Saudi Arabia, right? And this happened. So Pakistan, I mean, it's a big statement to make, but I'll still make it. Whether we like it or not, Pakistan involvement is there. Pakistan state level involvement, I won't say, but intelligence wise, there is Pakistani intelligence involvement. It's 100% sure. And the same token, India's intelligence is involved when any attack happen in Pakistan. So it's always given. Who understand Pakistan's politics or India's politics know these facts. So that's that.
So to put this in the historical nomenclature of, like, the West, could you say that India and Pakistan have been in a Cold War for a long time, and Kashmir is a potential sort of proxy of that and a potential trigger point for that?
Yes. And the problem, I like to go back in history a bit. 1947, that's where Britishers left us with a lot of troubles. And
James.
Excuse me, Jives. I'm not sure if this country here fits into India or Pakistan. It's fine. Just draw some dotted lines. We'll work it out later.
Yeah, like, not all the blame on Britishers too, because they did whatever they could in very short time span. And the original agreement, let's go back and, like, to just wrap it up real quick, that what happened back in 1947, the partition was based on, okay, the princely states going to decide where they want to join Pakistan or India, whereas the entities that are directly governed by Britishers will be decided on majority of population. So all the majority areas that have Muslims go to Pakistan, and so on and so forth about Hindus in India. So that's how it got divided. But there was so many states, princely states. Kashmir was one of them. But the problem with Kashmir was a little unique. It was Muslim majority state ruled by a Hindu ruler. And Hindu ruler at that time decided to stay neutral. Right? He said, we want independent Kashmir. We don't want no Pakistan, no India. We will decide later. That's what more exact. But what happened then, because it was Muslim majority, there was uprising within Kashmir from Kashmiris. It wasn't there straight away Pakistanis going in. To help them, there was a group of Pashtuns went to help them, and of course there was reports of loot and plunder as well. Whenever those type of militias goes, they do that. It's not something that just was unique in that. So Pakistan militias went in, and that escalated situations further because the Maharaja was losing its territories and he was not able to fight those things. So what he did, he asked India for help. So India said, if you annex Kashmir to India, we will help you. And then he signed the documents, and that's where Indian army came in. And the agreement that once you get rid of those, you go back. Right, but India never went back. And meanwhile, there was an area of Kashmir that is now part of Pakistan called Gilgit-Baltistan, the northern territories of Pakistan. So those people, the Gilgit scouts, they fought and they liberated their section. So it just became independent from Kashmir. But it is still, from Indian perspective, it is still part of Kashmir. In Pakistan, it's not part of Kashmir. So Kashmir is very tangled type of issue. And why it is? Now the question is why India and Pakistan can't resolve this problem for so long. It is because of the location of Kashmir, where it is located, right? Punjab, Indian Punjab and Pakistani Punjab is considered bed of both India and Pakistan. Right, it's a plains, Indus Ganges plains, right? So, and all this water comes from Kashmir. So it is very, very hard for India to give up all those water channels or supplies. For Pakistan, the only way to get to China is through that Kashmir, right? If they give up on Kashmir, then they lose their access to China. So it is more than impossible for both of the countries to give up based on agreement on table. So, and then there is this issue, which is of course not new in the sense that there is always some kind of incidents happening in Kashmir, and there is a lot of things. So yeah.
So what you're saying is the best solution is for Xi Jinping and China to take over Kashmir. Then everybody has access to China.
Well, China have taken some part of Kashmir, Aksai Chin, in a year and a half ago, I guess. So yes, China is on the northern side, Pakistan on the western, and India on the east, and the people of Kashmir are suffering. Then UN intervene and they say there's going to be a legislation, let people of Kashmir decide what they want. Neither Pakistan, neither India agreed on leaving the choice to the people whether they want to join Pakistan or India, or they want to stay independent. You know, the irony is India is ready to accept that either you want to stay independent or you want to join India. They don't give an option of joining Pakistan. On the other hand, Pakistan does not agree on the same terms. They don't want to let them to join India. There's either join Pakistan or stay independent, right? And nobody asks Kashmiris.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, China's in the back, hiding behind the tree.
Yeah, but coming back to attack, what are the future consequences? What is happening? So, terminating this Indus treaty has a great consequences. Pakistan official statement was, if India blocked our water, then it will be considered an act of war. And when Pakistan said that, they were serious about it. Because as I said, Pakistan's water is coming from Kashmir, right? And India, they both agreed that who controls these particular rivers. Punjab is derived from the word 5 rivers, the land of 5 rivers, right? So there is a treaty that India controls this much rivers, then Pakistan had the right on this much rivers, right? So if India just terminates single-handedly, then I think it will have large consequences. And God forbid, again, I say that we don't want to see 2 nuclear countries head-to-head on this particular issue.
Right. I think I didn't realize how severe the threat of war actually was right now, because, I mean, this is going to be a massive clash if it happens. because India is like 1.4 billion and Pakistan is what, 300 million?
Pakistan, yeah, somewhere around it. I don't know exactly.
But we're talking
Pakistan.
hundreds of millions, right?
Yes, that's for sure.
And 2 nuclear powers.
Yes. Very sloppy. But, you know, when you were talking earlier about like factions and how they're being like used as proxies, can you tell us a little bit more about the TRF?
TRF.
Yeah, the Resistance Front. This is the group that actually took
Yeah,
responsibility
yes.
for the attack.
Yeah, TRF. I mean, these are all new names, right? Now the strategy, the ISI changed its strategy. I don't know if I'm saying this and I'll be allowed to go back to Pakistan, but I still say it because I think speaking truth is the way for me particularly. That ISI controlled factions, and before it was Lashkar-e-Taiba. Lashkar-e-Taiba was the one frontier from controlled by Pakistan military, right, and do actions in Kashmir. But now, since with the international pressure that Pakistan is funding terrorists and blah, 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 right, so what they did is change their strategy, is just to hire, train people from within Kashmir. How Pakistan is able to do that, God knows, I don't know. Right, this is, I mean, India is 3-4 times bigger than Pakistan, more advanced than Pakistan. Still, they are not able to fight those things. But again, this is true with every other conflict, right? So this is the offshoot of Lashkar-e-Taiba, to answer your question. And these guys are based in Kashmir, and they operate from within Kashmir. So there is no cross-border walk-in doing things in Kashmir by just crossing over the border from Kashmir, right? So that is not happening. So just is what India always accused Pakistan of, that there is intervention from the other side of the border, which in this case is not happening. So I don't know.
So in short, it's very unlikely to come directly from the central government of Pakistan, but very likely intelligence agencies in a game of one-upmanship in attacks between intelligence agencies on both sides, which is in danger of plunging India and Pakistan into war.
Yeah, I mean, like, India has done a lot of things in Pakistan in recent past, and because there is a lot of turbulence in Pakistan, particularly on our western front, right? There is Balochistan, which is it is asking for its liberation, and there one of the frontiers is BLA, Balochistan Liberation Army, and it is a known fact that Indian intelligence agency RAW is at the back of BLA.
Surprise, surprise.
And I am not making these claims because I am Pakistani. There are many proofs. You know, Indian involvement when Afghanistan was under Karzai's government, how 11 consulates were established. What was the interest of India in Afghanistan, particularly given that India has anti-Muslim sentiment going on a big time, right? Why they want to invest in Afghanistan so much. So it was because it was Western frontier with Pakistan and they can operate. So that is one thing. Again, given the circumstances right now between India and Pakistan, India is opting for a false flag operation. You remember, I don't know if you guys recall that there was a little dogfight between India and Pakistan a couple of years ago, and India said, we bombed the terrorist site. I come from that same place. And let me tell you that nothing happened there. It was completely media propaganda. And when I say I come from there, I am literally from that place, literally, right? And I know there was a madrasa existed, but that they say that they destroyed that madrasa. Madrasa is still standing there, right? And there's not, I don't know whether terrorists were trained in that madrasa or not, but the attack was not on that madrasa. It just, they threw the bomb in nowhere and kind of like went back. So they will still do this kind of propaganda thing to just, you know, to impress their own people.
Yeah, without, I mean, that honestly sounds sensible.
Yeah.
So to summarize this segment, both countries are playing a dangerous game. So not only should we be praying for the families of the people who have lost loved ones in this terrorist attack, we should also be praying that India and Pakistan will avoid war and cooler heads will prevail over this issue. So the next thing I wanted to talk about today is the issue of cursing in Islam. And the reason I'm interested in talking about this is we were covering this scandal last week about the sort of secret wives of a prolific British Dawa guy. And one thing that's been, that I'd never heard before, that's been repeatedly used is the term Mubahala.
Mm.
And I've never seen a Muslim do this before, but I've heard at least 3 people, both Muhammad Hijab, his alleged ex-wife, and the guy who's exposing all these things, basically perform these public invocation of cursing that Allah will curse whoever is lying in the situation. Have you come across this before in your life? Is this something that's like actually coming from the Islamic sources, or is this just part of like British Muslim culture, or what is going on here?
Yeah, it's definitely has its roots in Islam for sure, right? I would say growing up as a Muslim, I have not heard of Mubahala. I mean, I've heard of sources that Muhammad had a Mubahala with Christians in Najan.
Okay, let's recap that story real quick.
Okay, so what happened back in Muhammad's time? There was Christians living in I would say in big numbers, not so much huge, but still a good amount of Christians living in the southern region of Saudi Arabia, modern day Najan, right? That's where they were. And Muhammad wrote to them, because when Islam started expanding, Muhammad wrote letters to different kingdoms across or the people, and invited them to come to Islam, right? And they simply denied and said, no, we are happy with whatever we are, right? And then there was not negotiation, but it was kind of like back and forth. So they were not agreeing on one particular thing, and then Muhammad ordered them to come to Mubahala. Mubahala means let God decide between us who is right and wrong. Let the God curse be on those who are wrong, and then like it's still ambiguous that how God's curse going to come down. Is that like a thunderbolt coming down and killing the person? But Muhammad went in with himself and his Ahl al-Bayt. Ahl al-Bayt means Ali, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein, the people of family. I mean, a lot of people will contradict with the statement of Ahl al-Bayt, but if we look at the true Islamic sources, Ahl al-Bayt means the people of family. So these were the people of family. That's how we say that because Ali, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein were with Muhammad, that makes it family. Right. So those were Ahl al-Bayt. Anyways,
and this is specifically like referenced in the Quran, right?
Yes.
In the third
Surah Al-Imran.
Yeah, in the third surah.
Right.
So this is not from a Muslim perspective, this is not a disputable event as to whether this occurred.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interpreted differently by Sunni and Shia sources.
Yes. I think Shia and Sunni both agree that these were the people there, right? And Muhammad went in with Ahl al-Bayt, and on the Christian side, nobody showed up. Right? Either they were like, we don't care, or they were scared. So, but it's really, really hard for us to sit here and say that either they were like, oh no, this is just a crap, we don't give any sort of concern about it, or whether they were afraid. So it's going to be not based on truth if we project our own.
Not even an inshallah.
So according to Al-Tabri's account of this, they basically agreed to pay taxes to Muhammad, and then they were allowed to return to Najran and live in peace until the time of Omar, and then they were deported from Arabia.
Yes, that's true. That's what happened, and again, Muslims see that as a victory, and again, They should be seen it as, I don't know, as I said, it will be not right for me to say that this really happened in terms of like a Christians withdraw because they were afraid, or whether they took the route. We don't want to mess with that. You know, you live lakum dinukum waliya din, Quran's verse that you live your life, we live our life. You know, let's accept that. So I think that's, but coming back to what Mubahala right now is circulating, is it's not the only time where Mubahala is used, the term Mubahala is used. I think if I'm not wrong, Ibn Masud also did something similar from Islamic sources. I was reading that he challenged somebody for Mubahala. But the argument here is you are invoking something very, very serious. God's curse is not something that you want to mess up with, right? So if you're a believing Muslim, if you believe that God is the creator and he is giving good and bad, and he provides for everything, and so on and so forth, you don't want to invoke curse of God, not just upon you, but you other person, particularly when you are doing for a Muslim, right? For non-Muslims, it is still, from my personal opinion, I would still do it for non-Muslims too. But again, some Muslims will agree that, okay, it's non-Muslim, you can have God curse on them. But as a Muslim to Muslim, that's a big thing. And so I don't know why this is so much of an issue in this modern day, particularly with Mr. Hijab and his scandal. It's just like two parties trying to put others to worst, you know, just in doing anything they can to prove each other wrong.
So there's another hadith I've heard which would kind of take the contrary position to this, I suppose. Well, maybe it's not the contrary position. Maybe there's a way to harmonize this. But in Al-Tabarani,
okay.
right? And this is classified as a Sahih hadith. Normally, when I cite hadith, I am working very hard to make sure I find a source in Bukhari or Muslim, but this is a popular one, so I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
I'm meticulous when it comes to controversial hadith. I don't think this one is controversial because it says Qariz ibn Sama reported he was part of a delegation sent to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and it was said, "O Messenger of Allah, pray against the tribe of Amir." The Prophet said, "I was not sent to invoke curses."
Yes, and I would add and supplement to that the title for Muhammad is Rahmatul lil Alameen. Rahmatul lil Alameen is blessing for all nations. That's what progressive Muslims think, you know, and that's what I personally advocate. You know, the problem with Muslim world is they are counting on all the negativities, right, and not seeing a positive side of things. So if Muhammad himself proved him so much of nice, generous, and forgiving. I mean, like the conquest of Mecca, for example, is a big, where he announced a general pardon with ifs and buts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But overall, if you put Muhammad's figure in a container, you will see that a lot of good things coming out of him, and that's why he was so influential figure. So I think the problem is when people use Islam for their own benefits and try to use it to just win worldly gains, that's where they come with these type of stupid things, which is, I won't call it stupid. It is there in Islam, but it is something that you should not be, as you rightly mentioned, that Muhammad said that I am not here for curses, but for blessings. So I think that's that.
So, yeah, so you've kind of got those two instances against each other, but would you say that the event of the Mubahala, where Muhammad and the Christians of Najan meet together, is an exception rather than the rule, or is the difference that this is a contest between religions here, and he's asking Allah to show him as the one true prophet over the Christians that disagree with him and believe Jesus is God?
See, that thing, okay, what becomes the norm is what is practiced over time, or that has done over 1, 2, 3 times, right? Mubahala, Muhammad never invoked Mubahala with any other, even with Iranians or Iranians means Zoroastrians or any other neighboring states or kingdoms. So it was only one time Muhammad did so, right? So I won't call it's the precedence of Islam, but it is there in sources, right? So
And has been used.
has been used, yes, very rarely.
Okay.
As I said, there is the incident of Sahaba using it, but after that, as I said, I've grown up. I never heard of Mubahala. Nobody in my circle used Mubahala and says God curse be upon a group of people.
Okay, but I have heard that.
Really?
Not in that terminology. Like growing up, like Turks are all about that. They like they think that the curses are powerful. They have like it's not Islamic, it's like cultural, but even the eye, right? Like the eye that everyone wears.
Evil eye, yes.
Evil eye is supposed to ward off evil spirits from curses.
Yeah, that's a little different topic. If we have time, we can cover it a little bit just to, I think, kind of wrap this up, because a lot of people will be confused with the term Mashallah. Is commonly used. If you have Muslim friends, you will hear that a lot from them. Inshallah and Mashallah. Mashallah is may God protects you from all the evil, right? So I think the idea is there is evil. Lanatullahi alal kazibin. May the curse of God upon the liars, right? So there is an element of curse, but invoking curse is different
Like
than
placing a curse.
yes.
Yeah.
Invoking God's curse is Mubahala.
Right. So the idea of the Mashallah for the evil eye, right, is not something that people speak out loud. It's something that sort of happens spiritually when somebody like sees something that's beautiful and is kind of resentful around it.
Yeah, mashallah is okay. For example, James is looking very handsome today. I would say there's a difference if I say, James, you're looking handsome, versus mashallah, James, you're looking handsome. So then the cover of protection of God's grace is upon you, right? I'm talking purely in a Muslim sense, right?
Right.
The mashallah word is particularly for Muslims.
Right. So switching gears here, you have this incident of the Mubahala. And of course, we don't really know anything about the Christians of Najan other than speculation and things we find from Islamic sources. It's not like they wrote anything. They might be, Eastern Orthodox. They might be some specific sect of Christianity. But let me ask you a question, Ibars. Let's say these people were Christians who were reading the Bible for the sake of argument. If somebody comes to you and says, we're going to invoke a curse together to see which is true, Christianity or Islam, would you participate in that activity?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
Because first of all, you need to view curses in a different sense, right? So if you take the Bible as its whole, there are definitely a conversation of what curses are, particularly in the book of Deuteronomy, right? There's a blessing on you if you obey the things that God says, and a curse on you if you don't. So what is that curse, and do people have the power to do that curse? So in the Old Testament, curses are tied to God, and as a reward for obedience is a blessing, and like a consequence of disobedience is called a curse, right? So the curses, it talks about like if you obey God, he will cause your livestock, right, to not abort their young. He'll cause your fields to bloom and blossom. He'll let you have many offspring. But if you disobey God, you will, the opposite will happen, right? Like you won't have many offspring. Your farms will die. You won't prosper. So in that regard, they're tied to God, right? They're tied to obedience between God. It also says, like, don't do witchcraft, right? Like it's essentially saying don't cast spells. I just followed a really interesting TikToker, and I don't really like not on TikTok a lot, but I liked some of the things she was saying. She said she was in witchcraft for 10 years and then she became a Christian. And she talks about her perspective on some of the things that are popular within Christian, American Christianity, Western Christianity today. And, some of the things she says are pretty controversial, right? Because a lot of Christians love, for instance, the Enneagram, and she hates it, you know. So the point is, where is it coming from and what is the motive, right? Like first of all, for me to be able to sit there and say in your scenario, hey, we're going to go curse Elon Musk, right? Like we're we believe he's doing awful things. It takes judgment out of the hand of God, right? And it also removes the redemptive element.
Mm-hmm.
It removes the element that a person can turn away from evil and turn towards God and do good. The other thing in the New Testament is talks about woes, right? So Jesus talks about it in the book of Luke, right? It has blessed are you versus woe to you.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that sorrow comes with disobedience, right? But blessing comes with obedience to God. And he talks like it's in the Luke version of the Sermon on the Mount. So
I have it up right here.
You have it there? Yeah.
I say to you, this is Luke 6:27, but I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you.
Right. So we know that curses are active. We know that curses are part of the world back then. But within context of the Bible, it's always been tied to, you if you engage in spiritual things like in the name of God or alongside of God that are outside of the will of God, right? Like the written explained will of God, in this instance, the Torah. Um, you know, you will be facing consequences. Also at the end of the New Testament, right? The very end of the New Testament, the last, couple of verses, it says, cursed is anyone who does not listen to the words of this book, who does not obey the words of this book. It's talking about the testimony of all the stuff that happens in Revelation, and then new heaven, new earth, and then you're cursed, right? If you're not obeying. And then it gives a whole list of things of people who are outside of heaven at that point, right? Like idolaters and thieves and fornicators and all kinds of stuff. So, to engage in something like that, right, is to say, I'm going to, take God's will out of the picture, and
Yeah.
I'm going to try and inflict God's will on you. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. So
It doesn't make any sense.
So what Romans 12 says, again, is bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Then it says, repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I'll repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you heap burning coals on his head.
Right.
So the Christian idea of this is that judgment belongs to God, and he will do that when he's good and ready to do that. And what invoking a curse in the name of God would be doing would be trying to manipulate God to bring his perfect judgment forward in time to right here and now.
Right. And there's two things you have to keep in mind. First of all, to go a little bit deeper into that, you also have to realize that, how do I put this? The first thing you said is like, it's crystal clear, like you're trying to manipulate God. But you have to understand that for us, when we say, what's a curse, right? Like if I were to sit here and say, don't curse somebody, well, then don't say F you to them, don't flip them the middle finger. That's not what they're talking about, right? They're talking about essentially putting a hex, right, on the person, wishing ill, spiritual consequences on that person. And the other thing you have to kind of back out of is all humanity is under a curse, right? Because we have a sin nature, according to scriptures, right? Like we are born in sin, and that sin alienates us from God. right? So it's called the curse of sin. And that's what the whole element of redemption is. Like, that's the whole point of everything that God did in the Bible, was to walk his creation through the process of redemption from the death and curse of sin into newness of life and resurrection. So, you know, I think it's really interesting because when you go into, like, I mean, we were talking about it in the last segment, you know, in Turkey, they'll go like, like they'll spit at you and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, that's common in Pakistan
you know what
too.
I mean? But like, you know, and I've seen it used in some instances like, oh, no, it's like a baby. You're trying to ward off the curses. But then when you're really mad at somebody, you'll turn around and do that. You know, you'll say, you know, like it gets confusing. But the point is, I think that like inherent in every culture, right? There's always some version of what it is to denigrate the image of God, right? Like, what is it to make the image of God look like we're made in the image of God, so uh, I'm going to denigrate that in you by putting a curse on you because you're obviously not worthy of it, or your behavior is, you know, whatever. So, and it happens. I mean, you see it in Greece, you see it, you know, in England. Like, they use the F word like it's an article, you know, like the word the. But like here in the States, you know, it's now turning that way. But what does that even mean, right? Like, is the F word even a swear word anymore? I mean, I believe it is, but like,
No, it's common.
it's
isn't it?
everywhere now, right? It's everywhere. So are you cursing somebody by using it? Well, I think you are, right?
Without knowing it.
Yeah, well, I think you are, but I also think that, you know, there's a difference. You're not like necessarily putting a hex on them as much as you're saying like, I hate you.
Yeah, and also I
It's
will
also bad.
correlate this from Islamic sources that Islam strictly condemns of cursing, and of course, something becomes cultural, right? There's the curse culture is common in Pakistan, and we're going to say they use certain words, it's like
Right,
F
right.
you or mom and F your daughter and all that stuff. But Islam's hadith talked about it, and it says that whoever curses somebody is just like you demolish the Kaaba, right? It is so severe that you have demolished the Kaaba. So it condemns those things. But of course, as you said, you know how it integrates in culture and becomes so integral part of culture, and people not knowing what is the impact of it and still doing it.
I mean, Jesus in Sermon on the Mount, I can't forget what gospel it is. It says, like, if you call somebody, you know, like a blockhead, right?
Raqqa.
Right? Or a blockhead, you are in danger of hellfire.
Mm.
So listen, God takes those things seriously, right? Like, the problem with words, particularly curse words, is like in language, is they're just lazy. They're lazy language, right? But once you start getting into this idea of using it as a way to like put spiritual harm on somebody, I think it crosses over into another definition, right? It crosses over into something else. I keep thinking about WandaVision. I'm sorry. It's like,
So honestly, it seems to me, it seems like the basic Muslim and Christian position on this is roughly the same, but maybe because of the nature of the Islamic sources, there's a few more places you can kind of like pull from and kind of adapt something to your convenience.
Right. And it's like culturally influenced, isn't it?
Yeah.
Culture takes the existing culture, takes the religion, and then merge it. For example, Islam in Pakistan and India looks not exactly same as Islam in Saudi Arabia and Middle East. So is the Islam in Turkey. So is the Islam in Africa. So that there is a cultural blend, and that's true for Christianity, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, that's true. I think a big difference here, like functionally, is because the hadith and the sunnah is like so broad. Like, again, both the stuff considered reliable and also the stuff that's considered unreliable. If you want an excuse to do something,
You'll find this.
you'll find a source, right? And now that's not to say that people who profess to be Christians can't also do that. If they can and do that at times, especially once you start to add extra biblical tradition into the mix as well. But if you only have the Bible, it'd be the equivalent of only having the Quran and Sahih al-Bukhari, say, as far as the amount of stuff you're reading.
Mm.
So you have less stuff you can kind of pull from if you're only reading the Bible. Whereas if you're just kind of pulling from, as many fatwas as you want, if you're fatwa shopping, it's easier to kind of find stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Right. That happens in Judaism too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not about the particular religion per se.
It happens in everything.
It happens everywhere, right? It's not about a particular religion, but it's about the prevalence of human tradition,
Yeah.
and the prevalence of relying on religious authorities, human religious authorities, instead of going to the sources yourself, right? And if you're doing that, you don't really have a mechanism by testing, okay, what's really from the sources and what isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because in I'd say it's more prevalent in Orthodox Judaism, but it's idea that the words that you speak are very powerful. So when somebody curses you, what Paul's talking about, right, is to use the power of that word to turn it into a blessing. So don't utter the curse back, is essentially what he's saying. The like when they talk about like the word of God bringing forth creation, that's how powerful words are, right? There's life in them. There's life and death in the power of the tongue. You'll see things like there's this thing called Lashon Hara, which is the libel, right? It's essentially like slander. So if I hear somebody saying something bad about somebody else, I take that rumor and I spread it and I spread it and I spread it. Those things invite curses. So that's why I say don't do it, right? Like don't engage in gossip, don't engage in backbiting. And then they tie it like to all the senses. So it's not just speaking. There's the ayin hara, which is the evil eye, right? Like what your eye is like lusting after and what it wants and everything else like that. So when Jesus is talking about like, plucking your eye out, right? Or, not saying things, Paul like reiterating that, or cutting your hand off, right? It's better to cut your hand off than to lose your whole body. He's talking about like where these things come from and the power that they have and how it's all based in what we say. So, for what it's worth, right? I think that is the idea for that comes from the ancient Semitic world. Right?
Yeah.
It comes from this idea that words have power and, curses and whatnot also do.
To go back to the opening premise to close here, with the event of the Mubahala, I don't know for sure if the Christians of Najan were genuinely scared or not. But what I will say is if they were Bible-believing Christians, they could not, in good conscience, have engaged in the Mubahala. So if we have anyone in the comment section who wants to try and put a Mubahala on us or put a curse on us, you know who you are.
Wow.
You're more than welcome to try that, but we will never curse you back. We'll be praying that you have a long and prosperous life and that God showers all his goodness and mercy on you. So thank you for watching, thank you for commenting, and thank you for listening to Christ and Caliphate. We will be back next time.